I asked myself, now I have nothing. What's the vocation I feel most compelled to do to support my family, to start feeding the family? And I'm like, I want to be an author, and I feel it, and I'm going to find a way to make it a vocation that it provides for my family, and it's of service in the way I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the answer is the same, if you have all the money in the world or you have no money, and the vocation and the dream is the same, that to me, that's a calling.
You're listening to Business Lunch with Roland Frasier. This is your seat at the table.
Hey everybody, this is Roland Frasier with Business Lunch. Welcome to the show, and I'm very excited today to have my guest, Mike Michalowicz. Mike, welcome to the show.
Roland, thank you so much for having me.
So you've got a really interesting background. I know that you had launched a couple of, I think actually $3 million plus businesses before you were 35, and then you won some awards and sold companies to private equity and Fortune 500, and now you've written 5.5, should I say, books?
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it is 5.5. Yeah. Ironically, the Haffer's done. It just now has to go through the machinations of the publishing juggernaut. So that'll take another 6 months before it comes out.
Great. Well, I've enjoyed several of them. I started with the toilet paper entrepreneur, and then worked my way through the pumpkin plan. And I love how you relate things to real life situations. I'd love to chat a little bit about that. And now you're doing, you had an accelerator, and I think that was acquired also. Is that correct?
Well, no. So the accelerator was my big flop. It was abandoned. So everything you shared was on point, except for the third company. So I did grow 2 multi-million-dollar businesses in the tech space, tech services. One was computer network setup. Now they call them VAR. No, I think MSPs. And now, but they used to be called a VAR. And then my second company was in computer crime investigation. It was a computer forensics firm, and that was acquired by a Fortune 500. But I got full of myself and thought I knew everything, and I was Midas. Anything I touched turned to gold. So I started an incubator where I'd invest in these companies and also help incubate their growth. So I started 10 companies simultaneously, and it was a calamity. I had no right to be in that space. I had no knowledge. I engaged disparate companies. So it was just all over the place. And 6 months into it, these businesses were out of business. 2 years later, I'd evaporated all of the wealth I'd accumulated in selling my first 2 companies. So that kind of became my wake-up call. It was the wake-up call. And
was this before you had started publishing the books, or this was kind of in between?
Yeah, it actually inspired it. I found there's an interesting question. I used to ask myself, if I had all the money in the world, what would I do? And the dream was to be an author. I don't know why. I just felt like very compelled to do it. Mm-hmm. I found there's a complementary question. When I had evaporated all my wealth and was just starting anew, and it was hard. I actually went through depression. We lost our house over this. We lost our possessions. I asked myself, now I have nothing. What's the vocation I feel most compelled to do to support my family, to start feeding the family? And I'm like, I want to be an author, and I feel it, and I'm going to find a way to make it a vocation that it provides for my family, and it's of service in the way I want it to be. Mm-hmm. And so when the answer is the same, if you have all the money in the world or you have no money, and the vocation and the dream is the same, that to me, that's a calling. And that's when I went all in on being an author.
That's really cool. I'd like to chat about that a little bit then, because I think there's lots of people that are listening that maybe have not had quite the shakeup that you did, but that have a secret desire to write the great American novel or nonfiction book, and they're not completely happy with their jobs. And I know you've got lots of cool ways to help people do better. But let's talk a little bit about that. So how did you approach that? So you started because you at that time, I don't think had written anything really yet for like the Wall Street Journal or any of those kinds of things, right?
Nothing. Right. It all started at the same point. The only thing I'd written a couple articles and so forth in my prior businesses, but they were technical, Mm-hmm. And I guess a great opportunity for all of us is to scratch our own itch. What I realized in running those 2 businesses, looking at them in reflection, while it's nice to hear, the guy grew a business that was, one was $2.5 million, I sold it. The other was $7 million. It's like, oh, wow, that's nice, small businesses. And the guy sold it. Good job for him. Or I want the same Or some people are like, oh, he sounds like a dick. Obviously he's full of himself and arrogant. Like I get that too. I get it. And what I realized is those businesses, those two components, starting and selling was great. The in-between was sucky. They were not profitable businesses when I was running them.
Mm-hmm.
I had HR issues. I had to refinance my house to cover payroll once. I struggled to retain clients. Like I had all these different struggles, and selling the business got me all cocky, thinking I knew everything about business. And the reality, and it woke me up to it when I started that incubator and it failed. I didn't know much about business. I was lucky and I had some things going on, but most of it I needed to learn. So that was my itch. I needed to learn how to simplify the entrepreneurial journey and make it more consistently successful. And so I started to research it.
Okay. How did you go about that? Where did you look?
Yeah, I started to research it. So the first thing you do is you start reading other books, and I became a ravenous reader of books. I love reading. I started to interview entrepreneurs, but not just like, the Elon Musk types. I never, let me be clear, I didn't interview Elon Musk, but that type of like big success cover Inc. magazine. Instead, it was, I wanted to interview people that were just the voices you would never see, the quote unquote common person, and the people that struggled. And to start finding common threads of when they did have success, what was it? And what were the challenges that people commonly faced? So just one example of this is Profit First. When I wrote that book, it was a realization that entrepreneurs in general don't do accounting. We say we do, but we don't.
Right.
And I didn't either. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then I started to seek out a solution for this common challenge, and found the solution that I needed and made it into a book. So that's kind of how it went about.
And that was the first book, which was?
Well, my first book was A Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And the Profit First came out later on, but The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur was the revelation that a lack of resources is actually our greatest advantage. And I'm actually just pitching to my publisher in the beginning of next year of 2020. I'm going to be pitching this concept that lack is actually a strength. Mm-hmm. So what I wrote about though in Profit First in the Toilet Paper Entrepreneur was when you have a lack of industry knowledge, for example. I don't have any experience. I've never done this before. And now I'm going to start a business in that space. It sounds risky and maybe stupid. But what I found is people with a lack of knowledge didn't know the industry rules, and therefore they become the game changers, the rule breakers. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, I think that's fantastic. I know Branson talks about that he knew magazines and then music, and then somebody called and said, hey, let's start an airline. And he didn't know what he couldn't do. And so then he ends up renting the jet for a year from Boeing and makes it go and creates a whole new business and has done
unbelievable,
it over,
right?
Right. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Though it's that lack that actually is your advantage. And sadly, it prevents many entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs from ever getting started. I wrote about the lack of money, and the lack of money, I talk about that a lot in Profit First, but even in Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, in that it inspires out of the box thinking, which is, again, changes the industry. The lack of contacts is actually probably a great advantage, because many businesses start off and they have friends and family that are willing to buy the product, and they get this false positive response that their product is really good because people are buying it. Well, these people are doing it because they value your friendship and your relationship, and they want to support you.
Right.
But it's people that don't give two hoots about you that are your best customers.
It's an artificial market.
That lack of a network facilitates selling effectively. So that's what the book's all about.
Do you think that that in the incubator that you did, and a lot of really smart people have not had success at incubators. I know Paul Allen and a whole bunch of people with lots of money. Yeah. Do you think that's part of that? Because I know that if you're funded, then you don't really have lack. You don't have to be scrappy. You get the best new Macintosh computers on your desk and all the cool foosball machines and all that kind of stuff and cereal bars, but you don't really have to scrap to make it. Do you think that has an impact on that to some extent, or that might have an impact on
it totally
the incubator?
Does. It's funny. I'm kind of pondering and reflecting on this as you say, because I haven't really thought about it. I thought about my own challenges and my lack of understanding of the market, but this is the first time that I've even considered it. So thank you for seeding that. And you know what? Hell yeah. Because now as I'm reflecting on those businesses, it's an easier start. It's like your rich uncle saying, don't worry, I'll get you out of jail. I'll pay for this. Your rich uncle saying, oh, don't worry, I'll get you that apartment you need. That's what I was doing. And And maybe, it surely made people less hungry and less dependent upon their own wit and intelligence and drive.
That's so now you got it. You published the first one, and was it hard to find a publisher?
Yeah, it was super hard. I actually didn't. So I'll never forget this. I went to some of the major publishing houses, which simply means you talk with an editor, a representative and I went to the editor. I didn't have an agent or anything. And I said, listen, I got this book. And I'm a former entrepreneur that's had struggles and successes. And I want to write about how to make a business successful. And by the way, the title's great. It's called The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. And I got laughed at. A person laughed like, are you, like, first of all, it's the dumbest title ever. Secondly, you know how many thousands of entrepreneurs come in every day saying they got a book? Good luck. And thank God for that, because that rejection, I got this stick up my butt, and I felt I had to prove myself, and I was committed to this. I wanted to do it. So my first book was Toilet Paper Entrepreneur is a self-published book.
Okay.
But here was the great thing. The magic number for publishers is if you can sell 10,000 print copies within 1 year in the business genre, that represents a book that's relatively exceptional. Shockingly, it's a low number, but it is. And I got a call from Penguin who said, wow, you made a go of this book. Would you want to do your next book with us? The same group, they didn't laugh me out. They pushed me out. But now they're inviting me back in. And I've been with Penguin ever since.
So that first book, then, when you published it, how did you get people to find out about it and to think to buy it?
So the first day, Roland, I'll never forget this. I have no idea how to launch a book. I just start selling it. So I tell a few people. The first day, I had 0 sales, and I don't think people appreciate it until they hear this. That means my own mother did not buy a book that first day. That's how visceral this moment was. And then it got worse. I knew an author in the business space. I don't recall who it was, but I called this guy and said, hey, I had the worst day of my life. I didn't sell a single book. He says, oh, don't worry. He goes, that's simply the quiet before more quiet. And that was like, his exact words. It was now a dagger to my chest. I'm like, oh my God, what have I gotten into? And I do not, if anyone's writing a book, I do not recommend what I did, but this did save me. I had used my last dollars to buy 20,000 books. It was $75,000. I literally went all in. I had $0 to my name. These books were packed in my house.
Pallets of books on your
garage, basement, bedroom, everywhere.
I have that image because I have done that before with courses. That's really
the book printer. The book printer called me and said, this book must be a big deal because we've never had an order of this size. And I was like, are you seriously?
Right.
Well, now I had all this inventory that I had to move. I hustled relentlessly, and it took years, but I sold all those books. I had to.
So tell us so for those folks who are not successful getting a publisher yet and who are thinking about doing the self-publishing thing, what did you do? So you were sitting there, you had no sales, you got the quiet before the more quiet, and you got pallets of books. How do you move them?
Well, I had the little internal conversation. It maybe took a second. I simply said, how bad do I want this? And I had painted myself in such a corner. It's like, I want this in the worst way. I will make this happen. The next thing I did was I just started speaking. I think the quickest way for you to move books is to be in front of an immediate audience, people that want to buy from you, and encourage them to buy. Well, I'm not going to get paid to speak. No one knows who the hell I am. So I started speaking at colleges, local chambers, anyone that I would say, hey, I got a cool topic. Do you want to hear it? And may I bring my books? And maybe get 20 people in the room. And the good close rate for book sales in the back of the room is 20%. If you do 40%, that's amazing. So 20%, that means I got 20 people in the room. I speak. I sell 4 books. I'm netting $10 a book. I just made $40. I gotta do like 4 speeches a day just to make enough to pay for food. Right. And that's what I did. I started speaking like a mother effer, like anywhere, everywhere. Right. And
you probably wouldn't have done that if you had somebody that said, hey, let's publish your book for you, right? Because you wouldn't.
Probably not, because you get the advance, and I'm like, I've arrived. So it was really grinding it out for years. And I remember a year or two into this, it's not like it's like, oh, you keep growing and the trajectory and the audience is bigger. No, there's successes and then there's flops. I remember going to University of California, Irvine. So UCI, I fly out there on my own dime. I'm not being paid to speak, but the guy, the fraternity brother who's coordinator says, we're getting all the business fraternities, all the business students. We're going to have about 200 or 300 people in this room. I show up half hour before I'm about to speak in the auditorium, and there's that guy, and there's no one else. And I'm like, where is everybody? He's like, oh, sorry, I break this to you, bro. He totally broed me. He goes, sorry, I break this to you, bro. He goes, there is a fraternity party that got scheduled for tonight. So people are going to that. And so I'm sitting there. There's one guy in the room, that guy, the scheduler. He was simply there because he had to be there. He's texting me on his phone. And I'm sitting here, and I'm like, you know what, Mike, deliver the effing speech. And I start doing the speech to one person. A tear is coming down inside. I am dying. But in retrospect, I'm so grateful for it. That was the ultimate test. Like, am I in for this regardless of the outcome?
Right.
And I said, I'm not going to stop now. I'm not going to stop. And it's only been the last 3 years that my books, after 7 or 8 years of grind, that really now, a larger population starting to recognize what I do.
So you are the 7-year overnight success.
Right. Yeah. 7 or 10
it.
year or 12. I don't know. But yeah, it's a long journey.
So you kept writing and kept doing this along the way. And then would you say was it just a kind of a critical mass tipping point kind of thing that really lit it on fire? Or what do you think really caused everything to take off for you?
I don't know. I'm sure there's a tipping point. I can't think of a moment or anything. I do know when I wrote Profit First, when I got that first email, that there was something special in that book. But what I'd done for the first time is in the book itself, I said, if you're doing the system, email me. And I got an email the first day and the second day and the third day, and then 2 or 3 emails would come in. And now there's probably an email every 20 minutes on average. I get about 3 to 4 an hour now, all day, cool, all night, and from people. And I realized, I don't know if that's a tipping point, but I know it spoke to, there's a thing called The Love Languages. There's this book by Gary Chapman. It is the freaking best book. And my love language are words of affirmation. And that is not just true for a romantic relationship like with my wife. What it also is in any form of communication where I feel validated is not through an act of service, not for someone giving me a gift, but when someone says kind words to me or supportive words or a nice observation, that lights me up. And now I get, 3 or 4 of these an hour. That gave me the juju. I'm like, I ain't stopping now. And now I'm not going to stop until my final breath on our planet.
That's awesome. Now, for people that don't know yet what Profit First is, can you give a little blurb? I'd love for them to, everybody that's listening, you guys should get this book because it is the only way to me to run a business. Can you do just kind of a brief thing?
Yeah. So Profit First was when I had that observation that entrepreneurs don't read their income statements and balance sheets and cash flow statements and run their business from it. Instead, we do what I call bank balance accounting. We log into our bank account and see if we have money or not. If we do, we spend it. If we don't, we panic. I said, well, okay, if we're running our business finances out of our bank account, we need a system that resides there. I also looked at the formula we follow, which I believe is fundamentally flawed. I mean, it's a travesty, but the foundational formula, it's based upon GAAP or generally accepted accounting principles, tell us that profit comes last. It says it's sales minus expenses equals profit. And my realization was it's human nature. When something comes last, it means it's insignificant. Like you never say, if you love your family, I put my family last. You never put your health last. These are important things. So I flipped the formula in Profit First, and that's how the title came about. It's sales minus profit equals expenses. Profit comes first. In practice, every time a sale comes in, a deposit goes into that bank account of yours. We now set up other accounts of the bank, one of them being profit. We allocate first a percentage of that income to profit. So $1,000 comes in, take $100, 10%, allocate to a profit, hide the money. And there's techniques to hide the money from yourself. Now you run your business off the remainder. That's the essence of Profit First.
I love it. And it is, to me, that we do that in our business. We do a thing called a top line scrape. So we say there's a percentage that's got to come off the top before we do anything, right? And it's worked great. So anybody that's reading this should definitely listen to that. Now, and I say listen because I listen to all the books. I don't read them, but you should read it or listen to it.
I love it. I listen too.
So now, after Profit First, I know you've got Clockwork, and then you've got the new one, Fix This Next. Was Surge in between those, or was that before Profit First?
Yeah, so the sequence went Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, then The Pumpkin Plan, then Profit First. But Profit First in a first release, I then did Surge, and then I re-released Profit First in a revised
In
and expanded.
2017, right?
Yeah, so Surge is kind of packed in between, and that was my flop book, Surge. I got cocky.
It's kind of a shame though, because it's about trends, right? Which are
trends. I'm actually extremely proud of the concept. It was my flop book because I didn't market it like I should have. I after The Pumpkin Plan, my second book, which has had relatively great success, I got cocky and said, well, now I'm an author. I got this all figured out. I'm just going to start releasing books. And because it's me, people are going to buy it. And what? That's not true. I got to prove myself every single time. It's like a band, having a one-hit wonder band and then coming out with a shit song saying, well, everyone's going to love this song now.
I'm going to release a collection of my B-sides.
right, exactly. So, and the funny thing is, it's actually, I would say it's a very good book. I'm very proud of it because it talks about a technique of pinpointing where opportunity is moving toward and how to get in front of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't market it well. And the second thing is I broke from a process I'd done in the prior two books, which was having very clear actionable steps. This was more theory-based. So it broke from my own little genre. So then I went into Profit First and the revised and expanded edition, and I got right back into what it needed to be and being aggressive and getting the word out. And that book became the breakthrough book for me. Then after that was Clockwork, which has had, for me, extraordinary success. And then my newest book coming out in 2020 is called Fix This Next.
Okay, so I want to talk about Fix This next, but before I want to give Surge a little surge. So
thanks, brother.
Tell me a little bit about, like, if you're sharing now with everybody, what would they get out of reading that? What would, having thought about maybe what the actionable steps should be, could you give kind of a brief blurb on that?
Yeah, so what it identifies in there is the quickest way for healthy organic growth of a business is to get in front of market demand. But what we don't necessarily inherently realize is that market demand is always shifting. So a good modern example would be Uber. Uber moved in front of the realization that everyone has a smartphone. So now you have a calling device beyond a phone. Everyone has one in their hand. We can now call that taxi cab to come pick us up. And that was, the basic essence of it. And so they captured on this shift that was already happening. People had a device in their hands and they leveraged that and it grew rapidly. Well, in any market, I talk first about how to identify the market, pick a niche, either a psychographic based or more often a industry or geographically based niche. Then there's a way to do certain analysis to see what's the market have right now they're consuming, what are they dissatisfied with, which is going to start shifting toward the new opportunity. People had taxi cabs. They were frustrated of standing out in the rain trying to hail a taxi cab and it splashes that puddle up on you. That it was a frustration that you had to seek them out.
Right.
What we're looking is for them to seek us out, and there was a simple way of doing it: just put a call request in. So that was the opportunity for the movement. Now, just someone had to create a product or solution, and Uber did it. Well, we had the same opportunity. As we identify a market, we see the shift. Now it's just the marketing actually becomes the creation of the solution. And once you identify that, you have greater demand, right? There's moving demand, lower supply. It's just you, which means you're going to get overwhelmed with demand, which it's tough when you're trying to service it, but it's a definite opportunity because you don't need to market. You're the buzzword. Everyone talks about you, and the surge moves toward you.
Now, did you look at that? I know in your bio it says that you have an augmented reality tech firm. Did that come from kind of looking at this and applying this?
To some degree, yes. Now that I am a shareholder in that company, it's funny. We have a meeting tonight. I'm heading out to meet with one of the partners there.
Nice.
That was an opportunity that I was able. Here's the weird thing of being an author. So some of my books have enough success now that entrepreneurs are reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, we want your advice and direction."
Right.
And I say, well, if it's a viable company that I'm interested in, the only way I'll participate is as an equity player or some kind of phantom stock. And so it's just put me in a position to establish a relationship with businesses in the way I wasn't able to in the past. So that's what's going on with Augment Texture is the name of the company.
Nice. So now with that kind of equity play and advisory thing, would you say that's the way that you blow up the wealth side of the business of being an author, so that you don't have to keep writing books just in case they don't continue to sell or markets change? Or
so here's the crazy thing. I would say not necessarily. I think someone can do extremely well on selling books. So I remember meeting with many authors as I was becoming an author that were not successful. And they said, this is the worst thing you're ever doing. No author makes money. That's what they said. And I started to believe it. And then I said, well, what if I talk with Tim Ferriss? And I actually had the opportunity. He was coming, he just had released 4-Hour Workweek maybe a year prior. We were both on a TV show together, just pure coincidence. And so now I have Tim Ferriss in a green room for an hour. And I'm like, Tim, can you make money selling books? And his response was, you can actually become a millionaire selling books. I was like, okay. So you can make $1 million on just selling books. So that was intriguing to me. And I've been blessed and fortunate, but I've worked very hard for it too, that the book sales alone provide a substantial amount of income. To your point, one day, just like a song, my books will not be popular. I hope it's not for another decade or two, or maybe 10, but it could be tomorrow. So the thing I did behind it, which I think is unique, I don't see other authors doing this typically, is I've licensed my books. So I wrote Clockwork, and I got a partner now in Clockwork. Her name is Adrienne Dorson, and she created a company called Run Like Clockwork, which provides the teaching behind the book. And I get a license fee and a revenue override. So I don't have to do work for that business. I simply just sell more books, like get the word out more. So she's very motivated for me to sell more books. And that's my dream. I want to sell more books and write more books. So I just do more of what I like to do. So the licensing is the great opportunity.
And you've done that with accountants and bookkeepers and business coaches. Is that through her, or is that
no, all different owners? So Profit First, there's a guy named Ron Saharian. We actually have an equity share in that business. It's called Profit First Professionals. And then Pumpkin Plan, Donna Lyons is the president of that company. It's called Pumpkin Planners. And they're all effectively licensees of my material. And Fix This Next, I'm doing actually a different variant of it, but the same thing, that we're going to have an offering behind the book.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. That's everything from, I know in talking with Tony Robbins, when he wrote Money Master the Game, the whole idea behind that book was to build a fund with $1 billion under management. And he was able to do that. And lots of folks do that to launch businesses like that. And I think it's just super smart to have that back end in mind when you're writing the book. And you didn't originally, right? But it just kind of came about.
Yeah, it came about. And maybe that's not such a bad business strategy. You know, people look at me and say, wow, Mike, what a great business plan. You write books, you build licenses. Now you got this whole kind of environment of business books. You really planned out a great strategy. And no, I just wanted to become an author. I just wanted to write great books. And then the opportunities started to present themselves, and it kind of built from there. And now it's a very clear system, but it came together on its own.
That's so cool. And now let's talk about the book that is coming out. I think it's in April, right, of 2020?
I'm sorry, you cut out. Say it one more time.
I'm sorry. The book that's coming out in April, I think, of 2020, according to Amazon, your next book.
Yes, Fix This Next.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I'm looking at entrepreneurs, and I'm trying to figure out what their biggest problem is. And then it became very clear as I interviewed entrepreneurs. The biggest challenge that entrepreneurs face is actually knowing what their biggest challenge is. So in other words, there's this constant rush to all these apparent issues, these urgent issues, putting out fires constantly, but no one really has a way to evaluate, if I do this one thing here, this is the one thing that's going to move my business forward in a substantial way today or this week or this month. And then when that's completed, what's the next vital thing I need to do? So without that awareness, I said, I need to make a tool. So I created this system. It's based upon Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I translated it into what I call the business hierarchy of needs. And what I discovered is a business, the basic DNA of businesses are identical. Our skins are different and the functions we provide, but the basic DNA is similar. So there's a sequence of stuff that needs to happen, and they need to be strong enough to support the next thing in line. So it's a system to evaluate where your most vital need is in the moment. And once it's resolved, the system goes through a cycle then to kind of identify where you've leveled up to now to resolve the next vital need. And also it brings you back down saying, whoops, now you have a little weakness in this area. We got to step back down a few levels, clean this component up and to step forward again. So it's a mechanism that acts kind of like a compass for your business to pinpoint what direction you need to head in next.
Okay. I love it. And then, so Now, when you launch this, you have a kind of a launch plan these days for these books?
Yeah, I do. And actually, this is we've hired a launch company. So the year before, we've always been doing it in-house, and then I hired like a person to manage it. But now we really have what we call her the book launch director, a woman named
Nice.
Amber, and she has a team that is marching us through this. It, I think one thing that makes this really apparent of the importance to sell when it comes to books is next time you walk through a supermarket and you go down the cereal aisle, you'll see one cereal buried in with another, 50 brands. It is overwhelming what cereal to pick, unless you went in there specifically looking for a cereal and you're like, let's see what we want today. You could be in there for hours. Well, now take that and multiply it by 1,000, because next time you walk into a bookstore, Barnes & Nobles, or next time you skim through Amazon and you don't know what book you're looking for, there's hundreds of thousands of competitors on those shelves, virtual or otherwise. So the necessity for an author to market aggressively, appropriately, with focus is mandatory in this market. And I think many authors write a book, but they don't market it. And then you're not a writer. Then you're not an author. You're a book writer. An author is someone that really becomes a proponent in marketing their book perpetually.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So let me just ask, what if you were to go back, because you had the opportunity to do it, I think 2 years later with Profit First, right? It was 2015, the original, and then 2017.
Right, and 2017 was the revamp, right? The rewrite, yep.
If you were going to update any of the others, are there any insights that you have, or do you have a list of kind of things you're like, God, I wish I had touched on this, or any kind of breakthroughs? I'd love to hear some of those if you wouldn't mind sharing them.
I want to rewrite Clockwork so badly.
Yeah.
So badly, yeah. So there's a few components missing. Well, first I'll start off with this concept of the QBR. So the most important part of Clockwork is this concept called the QBR. It stands for Queen Bee Role. It's a mechanism to identify the most critical function within the business. And it's the ground zero for making a business run on automatic. Yet it's confusing people. And I have a much simpler solution. And it kills me every time a book goes out there. The solution works. I just now have it simpler. And so I want to rewrite the full chapter on this concept.
Yeah. How can you share some of how you would do it differently?
Yeah. Here's how I do it. So right now, how the book writes is write down the 5 or 6 things you think it is, and then we go through deductive logic to find the one thing that it likely is. Okay. Here's the better way is first identify what the biggest promise you make to your customer base, meaning what are you known for or what you intend to be known for. An example with like FedEx. FedEx wants to be known to delivering packages on time. That's what they do. Right. Now they have other businesses, they have print shops and stuff, but FedEx doesn't want to be known for being the world's greatest print shop. They like to be in the ballpark, but they want to be known for the one thing of delivering packages on time. So step 1 is identify what do you want to or are world famous for. Step 2 then is ask simply, what is the one activity that most makes that promise a reality? There's many things FedEx does, but FedEx does logistics. The movement of packages ensures packages to get delivered on time. Yes, they do customer service and other things, and those things matter, but I will tell you this. Tomorrow, if FedEx says, you know what, screw logistics, packages will find their own way, we'll just be great at customer service, they will go out of business probably within a week. The headline will come out saying FedEx does not know where a single package is. FedEx sucks. FedEx sucks, but they're friendly about it at least because they're customer service. Right. Now, the reverse is interesting. If FedEx says, you know what, we're going to nail the logistics, we're going to be so on top of it, we're going to actually redirect all of our customer service people just to work on package delivery and logistics, and we're not going to answer the phones. 1 week from today, the press release would be, FedEx not answering phones, they're a bunch of schmucks, but hey, every package was delivered on time, and FedEx would continue to be in business. They'd be compromised maybe, but they'd be in business. Right. The QBR is the singular activity that your business's success is hinged on, and most small businesses don't know it. And I just wish I wrote in the book then, and when I do a revamp, if I do, I will write that figure out first what you want to be known for, and then figure out the most important activity driving that belief forward.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's so important. Would you call that brand promise, do you think? Or
exactly. It's a brand promise. Yep. It's a brand promise. And then, there's another thing too, just as a quick little aside. I talk about the 4 Ds in Clockwork, the concept of doing work, deciding about work, delegating, designing. Well, Adrienne Dorson, my partner in Run Like Clockwork, she came back and said, we found a fifth D. I'm like, what? She goes, it's distraction. A business actually needs distraction, and people need distractions, and the business needs distraction, or downtime is the softer term of that. But we need to recharge the batteries. In a manufacturing process, they call this protective capacity. The ability to actually have more resource than is necessary actually brings about more efficiency, because business is not always running smooth. There's surges and stuff like that. There needs to be a time or an ability to recharge, and there must be some overcapacity that when a surge comes through, you can handle it.
I love it. That's really, really great. So tell me, I'm going to give people ways to get a hold of you and ask you a couple more questions, but what question do you not get asked that you wish people would ask?
I don't really know. I mean,
or is there something that you would love to just I really wish I could get this point across, but it doesn't always come across, or I don't know exactly.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? Here it is. It's the cover of all the business magazines. I was walking through the airport and cover of Inc. and Entrepreneur and stuff. Here's what it is. They're bullshit. It's total bullshit. And the reason it's bullshit is they highlight the lottery winners of the entrepreneurial game. And that's what frustrates me. We see Elon Musk and Sarah Blakely and Mark Zuckerberg on the cover of these magazines. And it's wonderful. They've achieved extraordinary things. They have changed our world, but they are not the common entrepreneur. Yet we consume it saying, oh, that's what entrepreneurial success is. If I don't have $1 billion company, I failed. And the reality is the vast majority of entrepreneurs won't even have $1 million companies. The process is not what you see in the magazines. And so we should not aspire to clone them. Maybe have a big dream I think that actually is a great thing, but to not reward yourself and be proud of your accomplishments because you have $100,000 company or $1 million company, whatever, that's a shame.
Or worse, to punish yourself because you have that.
Yeah. I'm a failure. My company's only $100,000.
Right.
Oh, you brought money to our economy. Thank you, $100,000 business person.
Right.
So I call them the media darling entrepreneurs, and it frustrates me, not because of their successes. I'm very impressed by that. It frustrates me that we think that's the only pathway.
Right. It's kind of like the likes on Instagram, the challenges that people are having, especially young people these days, right? That they're so much so that they're going to take the likes away, so people don't judge themselves by, oh, I did a post of a picture, but it wasn't good enough because that person has 8 million likes to that, right?
Right. It's this comparative. And listen, it's human nature to compare. I'm just saying we're picking something so arbitrary. It's like saying, oh, a great way to make money is to go into the lottery system and gamble. No, it's not. But you can point to the 2 or 3 people that have become extremely rich, picking lottery tickets. And it's funny. I was just re-listening to Thinking Fast and Slow, Kahneman's book, and I've
about that. That we see all of these people, but truly over time they're outliers, and luck had so much to do with it. And if you look at their regression to the mean, eventually those people will come back, just like we all do, to some mean. Now, not that they aren't brilliant and came up with great things and all that, but really the things that we highlight are sometimes the wrong things, especially on those. But the business magazine comment, I think, is fantastic because it's so on point of, here we are featuring this person and saying emulate this person. But then if you go back, and I know he did it with Kahneman did it with Good to Great, Jim Collins' books, and with In Search of Excellence, and said, let's look at those companies now that they looked at over these long periods of time, and how many of those companies are still successful.
Yeah. They come back to the mean.
Exactly.
In media, one of the challenges in the media is because I did some television work for a while, it's designed to highlight the outliers. There's a saying in the news industry, if it bleeds, it leads.
Exactly.
And the idea behind this is we need to show oddities and extreme things to maintain interest. The shame is the consumer, we start to believe that's the norm. It's like, oh my God, there's so many terrorists, there's so much murder, this is the worst ever. Well, if you look at the data, it's actually, there's a declining murder rate, even with the terrorist activity we see. But it's impossible to believe because the perpetual news is about that one oddity. And that's what's happening in the entrepreneurial space too. We see, I love what Elon Musk has done. And I think what his work is doing is instilling great change in the environment. And I am so happy for that. I just don't think he's the norm. And all we see is him over and over again, or any of these other superstars in the entrepreneurial space and just think that's the norm. And it just ain't the norm. It ain't the norm.
Right.
The murder rate's decreasing.
It's all just where we shine the spotlight, right?
That's right.
So for people, thank you, number one, for being here today and sharing these thoughts. It's really fun to chat with you about them. If folks want to find out more about you, can you tell them about where to find you online, what podcasts you might have, blogs, socials?
Yes.
All that fun stuff?
Thank you for this opportunity to share. So the starting point for all the stuff I do is at my website, which is MikeMichalowicz.com. But I realize no one can spell that. So if
I was going to ask you to do that, if you would spell it for the people that are just listening.
Yeah. So my nickname in high school was Mike Motorbike. Now here's the irony. I've never driven a motorcycle, but people like the rhyme. So I bought the domain. So if you go to MikeMotorbike.com, that brings you to my site.
I love it.
It's easy to remember that. So go to MikeMotorbike.com and simply click on Get the Tools. And what I've done is all my books, I give away free chapters, not like, oh, here's the fluff chapters. I call them the impact chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So you will get the stuff that will drive your business forward immediately. And I'm a podcaster. I have a podcast called Entrepreneurship Elevated. I'll give you the link to that. And I'm also a blogger. But what I do is I do it in a single email. So if you click on Get the Tools and you tell me where to send the email, my auto email responder
magic thing
will send you one email with a PDF, and every single link is there. So you don't have to be a subscriber if you don't choose to. I do offer videos and other stuff. If you want to stay, I'd be honored. But if you don't want to, you don't have to feel compelled. I give it to you all in one shot.
That's fantastic. And is there a sequence for people that are just going to go straight out and buy books and things like that they should start, since there's a lot of places that they can look? Or is there a need that drives a particular book or set of books?
Yeah. So I used to have a 3-stage answer. I'll give you the 3 steps. I used to say, start Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, or I would, whatever my favorite book of the moment was, I'll read Surge or Profit First. Then I used to say, well, what's your biggest need? Like, do you have an HR problem? You should read an HR book. I haven't written one. Do you have a profit problem? Read Profit First. Now I'm saying, start with Fix This Next, because Fix This Next will help you identify the problem. I may not have the solution. It may not be one of my books, but there is going to be a solution out there, but you're not going to know the solution you need until you identify your biggest need. So now I'm telling people, always start with Fix This Next.
Perfect. I love it. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on the show today. And everybody that's listening, you got to read these books. You got to go to Mike's site, MikeMotorbike.com, and get on his list and consume his content, because it's just fantastic.
Roland, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.